Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal Public Affairs program. I'm Jerry Williams. Well, John Van Patella is the Northeast Regional Director for Athletes in Action, also known as AIA. He oversees the New England states and New York. His wife, Diane, is the chaplain for the WNBA's Connecticut Sun basketball team. Hear what Athletes in Action with John Van Patella is all about and more. That's happening now on the WIHS Journal. It's news and public affairs. Good morning, my brother. How are you?
Good morning, Jerry. I am doing great. It's a beautiful morning.
I always say, welcome to another new day given to us by God.
You know, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Every day, is a gift, right? So we're happy to be here this morning.
I'm happy that you're here. So AIA, Athletes in Action. But before we get into what that's all about, what's your story in a nutshell coming to Christ, brother?
I grew up in a very nominally Christian home. And by that, I mean, the tradition I grew up in. I got baptized as an infant, got confirmed as a teenager, but it didn't really mean too much to me. When I got confirmed, it was kind of one of those, do I have to go to church anymore? It was like a graduation from religious life. So I went away to college, to Syracuse University, and if you had asked me if I believed in God, I would have said, of course. Do you believe in Jesus? I would have said, sure. But if you would have said, how important is God in your life? I would have said, not very, probably, 97th on the list. And I ended up going there to be a sports broadcaster. So here I am in a radio studio, and this feels like home to me because this is what I was planning on doing with my life. I ended up meeting a guy who was on staff. I did not know who he was or what he did, but he was on staff with the organization I presently work for, which is CRU, or back then it was known as Campus Crusade for Christ. Right. We hit it off. We got together for lunch, and this is at the end of my freshman year, and he shared the gospel with me. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. It was mildly interesting, but I certainly was not ready for it. It did remind me, though, that when I was in high school growing up, there was this group of friends that I had who were the Bible church crowd. And so they had invited me to a few events that they had put on through the ministry called Word of Life. And I thought they were fun. They were certainly nice kids. As I look back, obviously they planted a seed, but I didn't really know it at the time. And so anyway, when I heard this message from this friend of mine, his name was Brooke, I thought, that sounds familiar, but it wasn't for me. Anyway, that summer came and went. And then in the fall, I was coming out of the student radio station where I was working and ran into him just kind of on the street. And he said, hey, you want to grab some lunch? And I said, sure. So we sat down in the student center at Syracuse University, and he shared the exact same gospel message because I had never really heard until he started talking to me about what it meant to know Jesus personally. I had always just seen Jesus as a religious figure, and I had seen in my own life the experience of religion and not the idea of a personal relationship. So I was sitting, I could point to you the exact seat in the exact spot in the dining center of the student union at Syracuse University where I said yes to Jesus. And Jerry, I had no idea what I was in for. I had no idea what plans God had for me. I had no idea what my future was going to hold. It's been a wild ride since then, but it was at that moment that I gave my life to Christ, got involved in the ministry, started to learn what it meant to walk with God and learn the Bible, and God just took my life in a whole new direction.
John Van Patella is my guest, and he is the Northeast Regional Director for Athletes in Action. How did all that happen? What is it all about, AIA?
So Athletes in Action is the sports-specific ministry of CRU, or Campus Crusade for Christ. And there was a ministry of AIA at Syracuse that was headed by a guy named Walt Day, who has now currently the chaplain for the New England Revolution up in Boston, or Foxborough, technically, I guess. And anyway, when I graduated, I was originally planning on going into sports broadcasting. I had my own radio show at Syracuse. I had called football and basketball games, and that was the track I was headed on. And God called me into ministry instead. So I ended up working back at Syracuse with the parent organization Crew. My wife and I ended up getting married, and we started a family. Then we moved to Connecticut in 1996, spring of 96, to give leadership to the ministry at UConn, which was really fun. And for me, it was a coming home to New England. For my wife, her family lives just outside New Haven, so it was coming back home for her. And that was our life, and we've been here for 27 years. But about 7 years ago, we officially made the switch within the Crew family to Athletes in Action. So AIA is a sports-specific ministry. Really, the idea is to reach the world of sport and then reach the world through sport. I've talked to so many people who've traveled all over the world, and I say, I dare you to find a place where you find humans and you don't find sport of some sort. The reality is sport is played everywhere. It's not always the same sport, but everybody plays something. And so we call it a universal language. And so to be able to bring the gospel to the world through the vehicle of sport is what AIA is really all about. So locally at UConn, what that means is working with the student athletes, coaches, athletic department to do ministry in that venue, to share the Christ with student athletes, to lead Bible studies, to put on a large group weekly meeting, have mission trips, all those sorts of things to help them grow in their faith, help connect them to Christ. And really, as I explained to them, it's like we want to help them understand and answer the question of what does God have to say to me as a student athlete? AIA in general has pro ministries. We've got traveling teams that go all over the world to compete. There's way more to it than just what we are involved with. But locally, my wife is the local team leader. She heads up the ministry at UConn. I serve as the regional director, so I have oversee AIA from New York State all the way through the 6 New England states. And it's a lot of people like their jobs. I really like my job. I just get to work in a field I love, sport, teaching the message I love, Jesus. So it's a great mix for me.
John Van Patella of Athletes in Action. So you're camped out pretty much right near the campus, right?
Yeah, we live about 7 minutes from campus, so it's a really difficult commute. I'm sure people listening have a much longer commute than I have. But living close is great because we have students over our house and we get to feed them and sit by the fire pit and hang out. And so working on the local campus has been great. What's really been amazing, though, Jerry, is to see what God has done over the last couple of years. COVID hit, and we were doing ministry virtually, like everything else in the world was done over Zoom, about a 1.5 year time frame. COVID hit spring of 2020. Students all went home, and we were doing ministry by Zoom. And then that following school year, we were not allowed to meet with students in person on campus. So again, the whole year ministry was done by Zoom, and we had about a dozen students involved in the ministry. It was the best we could do. It wasn't really ideal, but it was the best we could do. But since then, the ministry has grown like crazy, and we've got well over 100 athletes involved in the ministry now. The vast majority of teams have representation. We want to see a Christ follower on every team at UConn, and then of course, across the region. So the growth has been tremendous. There's unbelievable energy. And I just think so many students are seeking. They're seeking, and they're asking the questions that we want people to ask. God, what do you have to say to me at this point in my life? We were talking off air earlier where you had asked God the question, like, what must I do to be saved? And where God met you in your life. And these are the questions that student athletes are asking. And I know a lot of people tend to think of college and think, oh, that's a dark place. But I just have to tell you and the listeners that God is on the move on the college campus. And at UConn in particular, he's doing unbelievable things, not just in our ministry, in other ministries. It is such a blast to be a part of.
John Van Patella of AIA, Athletes in Action. Were you a sports guy coming up?
Big sports fan. I've liked sports ever since I can remember, really. The sports I played, Little League Baseball. We were 12-year-old Little League champs. It was great. That's probably the peak of my athletic career, but so we don't need to go too much into that. In high school, I played soccer, which was our school's big sport. We were always contenders for the state championship in soccer. I ski raced in high school, grew up in a small town in Maine, which is a really fun sport to do as a high school kid. Did track and field. I was a jumper, a high and long jumper, triple jumper actually. And then when I got to college, I played volleyball for the Syracuse men's club team. We did not have a varsity squad, so club was the highest level we could get to, and that was a blast as well. So I've always been a sports-minded person. Sports are very much in my DNA, I guess. Right. I've never been an elite athlete. Don't get me wrong. I've never been one of those, but I've always been very competitive and have enjoyed sports on all levels.
UConn football team. Football season just started. Are you out there at every game, or how does that work?
So part of my role locally at UConn is I serve as the chaplain for the football team, which is just a ton of fun, a ton of great guys. The coaching staff's wonderful. I am at every home game. I do not typically travel with the team. A typical week schedule would be, like, if they have a game tomorrow afternoon at Rentschler, I encourage anyone local to go check it out. It's a blast. And the team really needs the support. I'll do a chapel service for them on Friday night. Well, we'll spend 20, 25 minutes in the Word together. And then on Saturday, I'll go at the game, and I'll stand on the sideline cheering them on and encouraging them as we go. I really don't have a very active role with the team during the game. I'm not a football coach, so I don't talk to them about, hey, you got to make that block. I don't do anything like that. I just encourage them and give them fist bumps and give them hugs and that sort of thing. Pray with them if they need that. And then when the game's over afterward, I'll usually hang out and connect with them and encourage them as well. So that's kind of my role during the games. But I like to spend as much time watching them. But we do other sports too. We go to soccer games and field hockey games and basketball games, just trying to encourage the students and give them the support they need.
And your wife, she's the chaplain for the Connecticut Sun, the WNBA, and has been doing that in that capacity for how long?
18 years. She and her partner, Carrie Jelinek, the two of them have been serving the Sun for a very long time, and that's been an up and down experience. Like, there are times when there are a lot of women on the team that come to chapel, and there are times when very few, but Diane has done an amazing job both at UConn and with the Connecticut Sun. It's been a great ministry. It's a needed ministry. The women of the WNBA really need the support and encouragement as well. It's a tough place to be. As we know, women's athletics doesn't get the same kind of support and respect that men's athletics does. That's across the board, especially in professional sports. And so Diane gets to minister to these women in a really significant way. So she's been doing that for a while and has loved it.
Shout out to Diane Van Patella and the Connecticut Sun. How's the Sun doing right now?
Well, they just played their first game of the first round of the playoffs. They won, so they're up 1-0 in the series. They've got hopefully win one more on Sunday and then advance to the next round. It's going to be tough for them to win a title. They've been so close so many times and haven't quite gotten over the hump. We're really hoping and praying that maybe this is the year for them.
18 years she's been chaplain. And the WNBA has only been around for
a little bit longer than that.
Right. It hadn't been too much longer. I'm saying she's been as chaplain about almost as long as the WNBA has been in existence.
Right. What happened was when the WNBA was founded, really the NBA had to provide the financial structure and support for the WNBA when it first got started. And so every WNBA team was associated with an NBA team. So the Connecticut Sun didn't exist at the start of the WNBA. They were in Orlando, associated with the Magic. When that team moved, and it really moved because the Mohegan tribe, with Mohegan's son, the casino, they said, hey, we will pay for everything. And Connecticut, of course, is a very big women's basketball state. So the move made sense, but then there was a need for chaplains for the team in Connecticut. So Diane and Carrie stepped in and have done a great job.
John Van Patella, I thank you for coming to let us know what AIA is all about. I hadn't heard of it until I met you at Crossroads. You had a booth there. I said, man, it'd be nice to connect with this brother and learn more. So now we know. Before I let you go, you have a book out.
I do.
Talk about your book, man.
One of the fun things I've been able to do that God has opened up a door for me is to write books. And my latest book, I've got several out, but my latest one that just came out in August is called 53rd Man. It's about men fighting to make it in the NFL. It's not about the Tom Bradys of the world. It's not about the superstars. It's about the guys who are just trying to make a career in the NFL. And I highlight 3 athletes in particular, one of whom is Matthew Slater of the Patriots, so local team favorite. The gentleman on the cover is named Jeremy Davis, who's a UConn grad who still holds some records as a wide receiver for UConn. I got a chance to know him and mentor him when he was in college at UConn. And so it's just great stories. It's not a Christian book about football. It's a football book that features Christian athletes and their stories of faith just shine through the book. It's a really fun resource. So you can look it up on Amazon and check it out.
Check it out. And if someone want to reach out to you and learn more about AIA or just want to connect with you for some kind of reason, how can they?
Well, the easiest way is to just email me, john.vampatella@athletesinaction.org. You can check us out on Instagram, Yukon AIA. If you're an Instagram, social media person, you can see photos and hear stories about what's going on.
He's John Vampatella, Northeast Regional Director for Athletes in Action, also known as AIA. Thank you for joining us, brother.
Matt, thank you. Let's do it again.
We'll do it again. And go Yukon, go Connecticut Sun.
You got it.
God bless you. And if you would like more information about what you heard today, call WIHS 860-346-1049, 860-346-1049. I'm Jerry Williams for the WIHS Journal. It's news and public affairs.